All right, Gabe, welcome back to our third episode.
It doesn't feel like we've already had 3, does it?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's going fast. Again, for our audience, this is Legacy of Lies. This is our third episode. Sorry about the lighting in episode 2.
Yeah, it got a little wonky. We've been playing around with doing some red lighting in here, trying to kind of get our own vibe going. Yeah, mysterious. But we went a little hard with it on the last episode, and there was not really any way to save it in edit, so we just shipped it.
Yeah, that's on me. That's my bad. But
it is what it is. It's
so now
fine.
We'll see how this turns out. A little bit of a red tint, but
yeah, I kind of dig this actually. I think
too.
this is a good mix of lighting where it's got that kind of like what's the word I'm looking for, like underground CIA kind of feel,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
a little mysterious.
It's like a skiff,
right?
So yeah, what we're going to talk about on episode 3 is all the mysteries. Well, not all, but we're going to talk about some of the major mysteries of Antarctica. And there's plenty, obviously, and this is not a new topic. This has been covered by lots of people, but if you're talking about a legacy of lies, this one's up there on the top of the list for me anyway. So
yeah, it's up there for me too. And I think you could talk about Antarctica for probably 3 days straight, and you'd never even come close to touching all the mysteries and crazy stories. And it's for such a sparsely populated continent. There's been so much shit that's happened there, and so many things that people don't know about it. And I mean, it's like illegal to go there unless you're on a governmental mission from somebody. So
well, I think this timing wise, this is a good thing to talk about. Obviously there's so much history, and that's probably where we'll start. That's probably where your start actually is, talking about some of the old history of Antarctica and the, what do they call it, the National Arctic Treaty. I can't remember what it's called.
Oh yeah, the International Treaty of the Arctic was in the early 50s.
Yeah.
It kind of like, it was really the first
1948.
Is that when the treaty was signed?
I think that's when it was.
It was either late 40s or early 50s, but it was pretty much the first treaty ever where like all the countries agreed not to militarize an entire continent, which that in of itself is kind of weird when you think about it. Like, you have superpowers like the US and the USSR at the time that are agreeing with each other not to try to gain an advantage there. It's weird, man.
Actually, I think maybe I'm wrong on the year.
I thought it was like 54. I could be wrong on that though.
Yeah, it was signed. I forget. I'll look it up here shortly, but it was signed. It started with 12 countries, America being one of them, and it was signed December 1st in Washington, D.C. I can't remember the year, but I'll look it up. I think it was maybe 48 or 50. I'll look it up, but
no big deal.
But that's one thing we'll cover, is some of the history of it. But also there's some recent stuff happening. With and we'll talk about it a little later. But we have this young gentleman who's trying to fly and break this record to fly to all the continents, and he ends up surfing a couple of weeks in the Hooskow.
Pretty much a prisoner from the way it sounds. I mean, they wouldn't call it that, but that's kind of what it sounded like.
Yeah. He was arrested and held for 2 weeks.
What was his name?
Actually, hey, you know what? We can just go into that one right now if you want. We can cover that
start
quick.
off with that. We can do the older history stuff at the end.
Yeah,
towards the end.
He's a 20-year-old influencer. Here, I'll just play this audio clip.
Yeah, go for it.
This is kind of a news, giving a briefing of it.
20-year-old pilot and influencer Ethan Guo promoting his trip around the world while raising money for childhood cancer research.
Along the way, I faced extreme weather, mechanical challenges, vast oceans, and isolation.
But what he didn't predict, legal troubles and getting stranded for weeks in the remote Chilean Antarctic after local authorities say he provided false flight plan data and flew to the continent in his single-engine Cessna illegally. Guo said he had planned to fly here in southern Argentina and then to Antarctica, but diverted to this airport because of mechanical issues and weather, and that he got permission to land. This week, a judge dropped charges against Guo in exchange for him donating $30,000 to childhood cancer research and leaving as soon as weather conditions allow.
It's quite frankly insane, as in, they say I'm free. They say the plane is free, but they won't let me leave. They won't let me fly it out.
And so...
Yeah, that's it. Just a quick video, but
that's crazy.
Anthony Yo.
I remember hearing about this like a month or two ago when it all like was first going down, and they were not happy with that guy. I like all the news stories that were coming out were talking about how the Chilean government was after him, and I think the Argentinian government was there was several different governments that were after him. And it is, so I will say the story to me, without pulling up the exact map of his flight plan, is a little fishy.
Yeah, it is. And there was like a, so obviously they're monitoring everybody's flights, and it sounds like, if I read the article right, and if I remember it right, there was like a last minute change in his flight path.
Yeah.
Like, and he said he was having mechanical issues. So maybe that does explain it, if it,
But you diverted to Antarctica.
Well, I don't know. If he's
Like,
going to Argentina, that would make sense to me.
Yeah, that is on the southern tip, but
yeah.
God, you'd have to think there's something closer than Antarctica, but I don't know.
And I would think it's common knowledge, right, that you don't fly there.
Yeah.
I think, so people, they have visitors. I looked this up, and but you have to go through like a background check, health screening.
Yep.
It's crazy. And it's very heavily monitored if you were to go there.
Well, I know from some of the readings I've done, like the health screening is because there's no guarantee they can even get you a doctor within a month, 2-3 months, depending on the weather. Like if it's the middle of winter, they need people out there to be super healthy because, like they can't have people that are going to need all this extra medication, dialysis, whatever, because they're not going to be able to get it to you, and they don't want you to die on their base,
One of the things that I read along those lines, it's kind of like it's like an unwritten rule, is they don't let like scientists who are going to go post out there for months. If you have your wisdom teeth, they don't let you go.
No, I have heard that. Yeah. That's crazy, man.
Because of, the consequence. Yeah.
Right. I have to think, maybe even stuff like your appendix, like just random stuff that, you don't really think about day to day unless you're going to the edge of the earth or, to the ice wall, whatever you want to believe. But it is such a cool continent. And that story is a great jumping off point because it shows that even after, 80 years, the entire continent of Antarctica is still completely shrouded in secrecy. We've learned almost nothing else about it from, the 1950s to now.
Right.
As far as like
the public anyway.
Yeah. Because you can't go there, like you said, unless you go through this super long, arduous process, get approved. And even then, you're only going to go to the areas they let you go to.
Right. You're going to be, you'll have an escort the whole time, I'm sure. I'm sure that, they're bringing you to the places that are whatever, not exciting. Don't have like all the scientific stuff. So probably some of the boring weather monitoring stations and stuff like that.
They'll take you around, give you a little tour, but you're going to go to the weather monitoring shack. You're going to go probably to their little on-base bar, get some food, maybe go hang out in their little pool hall. You're not going to be doing like cutting edge research out there.
Not
there's
like
no way.
Admiral Byrd.
Yeah. That's a great transition. So if we do want to go back, and this is kind of where it all started. So this was 1940, I believe it started in 46 is when this expedition was. It was right after World War II. And for those of you that don't know, Admiral Byrd, he was basically a World War II hero. He was an admiral. He had command of a ton of different ships. He was very successful all throughout the war. And basically, right after World War II, the United States government came to him and put together this operation called Operation High Jump. And Operation High Jump, what the government said it was for was they wanted to establish an American research base there and do basically studies to see how they could get the base there to work, and just see what, long term over several months, if the conditions were, survivable, and what they would need to make that happen. But the crazy thing about Operation High Jump is that they had 4,700 people, 13 ships, and 33 aircraft. So basically, at the time, most of an aircraft carrier, like a whole flight wing, essentially, is what they brought. And it's like, at least in my mind, if you're going to set up a research base, why don't you go there with like 2 icebreakers and a cruiser and like 300 dudes? Right. Like, I mean, I understand you need like a logistics train, and practically you need some of that stuff, but I can't possibly imagine 13 ships being necessary, or almost 5,000 men.
Right.
It's insane to me. But yeah, they wanted to set up a research base at Little America. I think it was Little America 6. And they were going to test equipment and survivability in the Antarctic conditions. So I think where we can head in from there, basically, once they got there, they started to run into issues pretty quickly. They had 3 men die in an air crash, and that was pretty early on in there. They had several people dealing with frostbite and various like more minor injuries the whole time, and they ended up having to cut the entire thing short by, it was like almost 2 months. And the reason that they gave was that the Antarctic winter had come on more quickly than they had been anticipating. But given that, like, they had been doing research on, what this was going to be like for years. Like, people have been looking at Antarctica since the 30s, and there's been expeditions going there for decades. So it kind of blows my mind that they would have all this stuff planned for, a 4 or 5 month expedition, and they cut it short by 6 or 8 weeks just because, like, the weather got bad.
So if I remember right, they cut it at either 6 or 8 weeks, and it was supposed to be 6 months long, their first, that whole journey.
Yeah, they cut it off a lot. So
I think the big mystery, or the big, all of that, when they came back to America and he started doing some interviews with people and newscasters and all that.
I think it was his Argentina or Chile interview. He did an interview with one of the South American countries, like when they were on the way back. And I think that was the one that drew all the hype.
Heat.
Yeah.
He, well, I'm trying to not to get too out of order here, because that's not necessarily the one I was talking about, but.
Oh, gotcha.
So the one I was thinking of, I watched this video. It's somewhere in America, I don't know where, but he was doing like a news video.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to say, he visibly looked like rattled. Like,
yeah,
he looked rattled. And one of the people on his flight crew recently died within the last 10 years.
Okay.
He was still alive. And that's where a lot of this, mystery about this missing diary kind of got cemented as maybe it's true. He wasn't with Admiral Byrd when he took that, crazy flight where his, the compass is going wonky. He lost control, and I'll let you go into that story a little bit if you want. But, basically on his dying bed, he finally, after whatever it was, 80 fucking years, told one of his great grandkids or his grandson, the words that Admiral Byrd said to him, and it was, I saw things. It kind of reminds me of the astronaut who went down there.
Yeah.
But he said, I saw stuff I wasn't supposed to. So it's definitely not the same as that questionable journal entry.
Right.
Or from his hidden diary. But But yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about that. Otherwise, I can too.
Yeah, before I go into it, I was going to say, because I've seen that clip very recently too, and the way that he looked reminded me so much of the way the Apollo astronauts looked in their like press conference after they got back. Like, you would think somebody who just went on this like groundbreaking expedition to Antarctica would be, maybe tired, but super happy to be home, like thrilled with what had happened. Like you're exploring, you're, a modern day explorer.
Yeah.
And he looked just haggard, man. Like he did not look like he was enjoying himself at all.
Yeah. And that's something this guy, I mean, you talked about some of his stats at the beginning here. I mean, he lived for this. This is what he did. He explored the world. He was excited about it. He had passion about it. And I didn't see that in that, in that interview. So
right.
It definitely makes something happened, obviously.
Yeah, it was more solemn than anything.
Right.
Like he was scared of something. But for those of you that don't know the full story about Admiral Byrd and kind of what we're tickling at here, at getting at is he had, while they were down there, I believe, so after he had gotten back, was it his son that found the hidden diary? That's what I had read.
Yeah.
Supposedly his son had found his hidden diary, the one that didn't get confiscated by the government, because the government took almost all of his research material and claimed it was top secret, right? Well, he had hid one, and I basically what I want to do is I'm just going to read you guys an excerpt that talks about what was described in his diary. And it starts off, Admiral Richard E. Byrd of the United States Navy flew to the North Pole in 1926 and over the South Pole in 1929. In a diary, he tells on his mission in 1946 of entering the hollow interior of the Earth, along with others, and traveling 17 miles over mountains, lakes, rivers, green vegetation, and animal life. He tells of seeing tremendous animals, resembling the mammoths of antiquity, moving through the brush. He eventually found cities and a thriving civilization. The external temperature there was around 74 degrees Fahrenheit. While flying, his airplane was greeted by flying machines of a type that he had never seen before. They escorted him to a safe landing area, where he was graciously greeted by emissaries from a country called Agartha. After resting, he and his crew were taken to meet the king and queen of Agartha. They told him that he had been allowed to enter Agartha because of his high moral and ethical character. They went on to say that they worried about the safety of the planet due to the bombs and other testing being done on the surface by various governments. After the visit, Byrd and his crew were guided back to the surface of their planet. And one thing that's not mentioned in that is the mysterious flying machines that supposedly escorted him in had swastikas on the side of them. And it was kind of explained later on in the diary that they weren't necessarily Nazis or fascists. It was like lost civilization, like old Tibetan swastika stuff.
Yeah, the swastika is old. I mean, it's older than the Nazis. So
yeah, it's a Hindu symbol from thousands of years ago originally. So, but I think especially in the mid 1940s, I'm sure for him to see that on the side of the plane was terrifying.
It makes you think, though. Kind of off on a little bit of a journey here, but that got me thinking about, so Agartha, let's just say it's real. Like, this is real. There's a civilization. I read somewhere kind of the way he described them would be like what I've been described of Pleiadians, or the tall whites, or whatever.
Right.
That's kind of how it was described in the journal, if I remember right. But okay, so that symbol definitely makes you think, though. Like, so if maybe this is where they're always from. They've always been there. They're still there. That's why we're not allowed. But you wonder, the swastika, if that can't, is that something that our civilization copied from them?
Right.
Did it come from a different planet? What was the original meaning of it?
Yeah, different planet, or was it pre one of the great resets, which we haven't done an episode on that yet, but both of us kind of believe that there's been potentially multiple different civilizational rises and falls over the last several 100,000 years.
Yeah.
And they usually end with either an asteroid or a flood, but like, it does make you think, like, is that like a pre our civilization symbol that the ancient Hindus found and co-opted, and there's maybe, I don't know, Atlanteans or Agarthians that are still using it that made it through that. They just kind of hid themselves, or it's really crazy. And then you combine that with the fact that, like, going back to the Nazi connection of that, imagine seeing that on the side of that plane in 1946 or 1947. You had just beaten, or thought you had beaten, the Nazis. And the Nazis provably had done multiple Antarctic, research. They had sailed down there. They had tried to set up a base. I believe they did in the Arctic as well. They had gone all over the world.
And they have ties to Argentina as well.
Yeah.
With people, a lot of Nazis fled there. And so that's probably I would imagine that Argentina is probably the closest point.
It is, yeah. The most southern point of Argentina is the closest point, I think, of any other country to Antarctica. That's always like a jumping off point when, even now, when we do missions down there, a lot of countries will resupply in Argentina. But it just all fits a little too good for me.
Yeah. Like just questions come up, and the swastika symbol, like, the conspiracy theorist part of my brain is, and this makes it sound like I support, Nazis, which obviously I don't,
right.
But it wouldn't surprise me that symbol is demonized, so we don't, like, almost like, now I think Adolf Hitler made that symbol the shitty thing it stands for now.
Well, he did change it too. The original one is different than the one that the German Republic, or the state of Germany, used in the 30s.
But it makes, I think, okay, so it's illegal, right?
I think, well, not in America, but I think in most countries in Europe it's illegal.
And so it makes me think, is it only illegal for that reason, or is there a deeper reason that they, they're hiding it? Because they don't want us to know about that stuff.
Right. And the Nazis themselves were really into mysticism. And now part of that, I think, is they were trying to attach some kind of pseudo-historical legacy onto their symbol that they had co-opted, and they kind of wanted to have a justification for doing what they were doing, which obviously there is no justification for what they were doing. But it doesn't mean that symbol in the past didn't have legitimate spiritual, mystical meaning to different peoples. There's a reason that the swastika is like the most ubiquitous symbol through all mankind, besides maybe pyramids or the all-seeing eye. Like, the reason it's lasted for thousands of years is because it means something to a lot of different people, right? So I guess it's so hard to say what was going through Admiral Byrd's mind at the time, but can you put yourself in that position of, you're flying and you are probably expecting to see nothing but ice. Keep in mind, you're, thousands of feet up in Antarctica. It's terribly cold. And then, if you go through his story more in depth, he says that he was flying and he saw green, and then he looked down and he saw, it looked like fields, like a savanna, like a plain, right? And he saw what looked like elephants, and then he looked closer and he realized it was like woolly mammoths. It was
crazy. Isn't that something?
Right. It's insane. And then he said shortly after that is when he realized that he wasn't cold anymore. It was warm in the cockpit, even that
he
far
took
up.
his gloves off and put his hand up against like the cockpit window or whatever.
Yeah.
And then that's when he looked down at the temperature, and it was 70 something.
74 or whatever is what it said on the ground. But that is so crazy.
So you think of that from like just a geological standpoint, with you go from, it's like what's separating, where's the separation keeping those environments? If that's real, if that really happened, he went from, sub-zero weather to 70 and sunny. What was he allowed to go through?
Right.
Like
was it a portal? Or...
Yeah, what's the barrier? Is it a portal or something? Yeah.
And I think the implication from what most people take it as is he basically went into like the center of the earth, right? Yeah. But I mean, did he physically go into the earth, or did he go through some kind of like dimensional portal or some other, pathway into a different realm? And that's what has always fascinated me about it, is like, it doesn't really make logical sense at all anyway, but it really doesn't make any sense that you would fly into a hole in the ground and it would still be bright out.
Right.
And one of the things he did say, supposedly, in that hidden diary was that there was some kind of, he described it as a sun, but that was in like the center of the earth.
Yeah.
And that's where it definitely makes me think like this almost had to be a portal or something, if this story is true.
A lot of another thing that I remember from people that were, and I'm sure even back then, all these folks signed NDAs or the equivalent to whatever that is back then. But they talked about, like, you know, you look at the ice and it like glimmered or glowed a little bit. And so people, one of the people on the crew, when he got back and was being interviewed, said something that they all thought, or they all had an understanding that the ice was actively listening to them. And that's crazy to think about, you know, like they got that because it like glowed, and I'm sure maybe even reacted or responded to what they were doing.
That's super weird. It kind of follows on a similar topic with, I was listening to a really good podcast I like last night. It's called Patterns Tell Stories. And if you ever listen to that, but they were talking about basically you have a huge history of all these astronauts. Like as soon as they leave Earth orbit, they almost always, it's like almost 100% of them have this existential realization, and they almost, like if they're atheists, they instantly become Christians or turn to spiritualism. They instantly start wanting to care for the planet more. They have this total paradigm shift in the whole way that they view everything. And it kind of reminds me of that. It's like the environment that you're in is so destabilizing to your psyche, like completely breaks your worldview, that you have to look at life differently after being there.
Yeah, that's a lot to think about.
Yeah,
you wonder, like I wonder anyways, if that's like because they look back and they see everything they've ever known is now this dot, or if, you know, they left Earth and they're being literally touched by God. Who knows? That's, you know, like he's putting those feelings or that stuff, you know, that desire on their heart. I don't know.
Well, you know, Antarctica has a lot similarities with outer space. If you think about it, like very, very elite club of people that have ever been there. No, like normal people can just go there like unescorted. You know, like they had Katy Perry up in a fucking rocket ship, but I think she didn't go up that high.
Yeah,
if they went up at all. But like, you know, it's a very elite group of people that have done it, and it seems like even with Antarctica too, everybody that goes comes back profoundly changed.
Yeah.
And it just makes you wonder, like, is there a reason? I mean, obviously it makes sense why normal people can't go to the moon, right? Like it's expensive, it's dangerous, whatever.
It's occupied.
Right. Something's going on up there. But, you know, it makes me wonder, makes a guy wonder why certain places are completely blocked off on our own planet.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah, I mean, that's like a whole other episode, but that's infuriating to me, I think. And I think it is for most people. Most people who want answers are searching for, you know, truth. And so you have these individuals who based on, not everybody, right, but a lot of these folks, they're, you know, let's just say like the Rothschilds, you know, it's not like the next one in line isn't going to be successful. He's going to be successful. You're born into that type of
They'll
situation.
make sure that he or she is successful.
Yeah, he could be half retarded. He's going to be successful. And so then they get to be a part of this club. We'll never be a part of it. Not that we'd want to, but what type of information do they have access to that we don't? In all these things, you know?
Yeah, not even just with normal everyday stuff like you think about, like stocks and the insider trading info they have, but with spiritual stuff, like why are all these super rich billionaires like doing sacrifices to owl gods and shit, or like Moloch or whatever? Like, you know, I think they all seem to have a very different view of spiritualism and like paganism than a normal person does, and it's almost uncanny how many of them are
I
like
know.
that.
Yeah, it's creepy.
You basically have to think that they have some other knowledge / agenda than a normal person does, because why would it all be like that?
Yeah, I mean, or it's the tale as old as time. They made a deal.
Yeah.
They were part of this club that made a deal, and they signed it with their blood, and now they're gonna worship an owl. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe that's why they're all successful. Maybe that, the owl is, an evil spirit or the devil or whatever, and that's the deal they gotta keep their end of if they want to stay, rich and powerful.
Yeah, that type of stuff. I think maybe when I was younger. So I'm 47 now, and your worldview changes. Yours will change multiple times.
Right.
And mine probably will too when I'm my father's age. But maybe in my 30s, I would have been. I want to be that person. I want to, climb their ranks and whatever. And I'm not saying I don't want to be successful, but that's not what I think is like prove success. Like
Right.
you can be, like I said, you can be born into that shit. It doesn't prove that you worked hard for it or anything like that. And so my view of what success has evolved completely. It used to be, you have a huge 401k and a bank account and
The traditional economic.
yeah. And now my view of success is my children aren't assholes. They're good people. They turned out good, respectful. That's a huge success, especially, today's day and age where
that's easier said than done.
right
Now
right.
in this world, right?
So that, and then working hard at living my life for God, which is, definitely a change for me.
Yeah, because you didn't always have that viewpoint. Not that you were like super anti-God, but
no, I was definitely on again, off again for quite a while with, my beliefs. And, a lot of the reason I got off was when my brother passed away.
right.
That's pretty normal. I think a lot of folks, whatever, you start blaming whoever or whatever. Yeah, but like, in the last, I don't know how many years, 5 or 7 years, 8 years, something like that. You get older and you start viewing the world differently. And I don't know, then all of a sudden it's like one day, instead of, this is probably like just a bunch of, babble here, but I spent a lot of time in thinking, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm right? That whole thing.
About
where,
religion is what you're saying?
About my beliefs in general.
Oh, sure.
So I would waffle all the time about, well, I want to believe in something, but I don't want it to be the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And back and forth. And then I think, at some point in my life, I woke up one day and I was like, oh, that's the truth right there.
Sure.
And just don't question it. I mean,
Yep.
and it, now don't get me wrong. I question everything, but I put my faith in one person and that's it. So
yeah. Well, I think at a certain point, not to oversimplify it, but you got to just pick something, man.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
whatever agrees with you the most, whatever. And, I think that I don't know that it even matters so much how you go about it or like what sect of what religion you are or whatever. I think having a set of guiding principles and having basic morality is super helpful for pretty much everyone.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, like I said, I'm a Christian, but there's plenty of people that are Hindus, Jainists, whatever, that are excellent people.
Right.
Like, and I think that, and also there's tons of atheists that are really, really good people
For
too.
sure.
But generally those people have some kind of moral code that they still live by, right? Like they don't agree with murder. They don't agree with incest, like all, the kind of base level human morality that has guided civilization for thousands of years or
Right.
has attempted to. So, but I agree. I've had a couple different like paradigm style shifts in my life too, even, only in, 3 decades that have come and gone. And I've had, you have things happen to you during your life and it changes the way you look at stuff. But I think as long as you can keep that guiding morality instead of principles behind you, and you have a good support system, good family, good friends, like you always work it out. But
Yeah.
I totally agree that it's really important, I think, to just pick something
Yeah.
to believe in at a certain point.
Owl, obviously. If you're,
Yeah.
Hollywood elite, you pick an owl, for God's
Or
sake.
Scientology, I think, is the other one.
Do they do owls?
I don't know if it's owls.
So that's actually maybe a whole other subject, but who cares? This is our show. We'll talk about what we want to talk about.
Right.
So is Scientology the one, obviously when I hear Scientology, I think of two names, L. Ron Hubbard and Tom Cruise.
Right.
I don't know anything else about it, but they're don't they believe that, like, oh God, what is it? We're going to be taken off planet or something.
I'm honestly
it has to do with space or something, right?
I think so. I'm not super sure. I know that they do the things where they, I forget what they call it, but they like hook you up to some kind of machine.
Oh, yes.
And they run you through, and it's supposed to like heal your energy or something. I don't know. I'm not really very familiar with Scientology, obviously, but it's very different from whatever it is. I know that they're really big in like Tampa Bay is where a lot of them are, which is kind of weird. There's another guy I listen to who has a podcast down in Tampa, and he said that his building where his studio is, there's like 3 or 4 Scientology owned buildings like all around him. It's super weird that they've over the last 20 years have bought up like tons of property down there in like Clearwater, Florida. They have like several different cities down there because obviously their members are super wealthy.
Yeah.
And it's just not something I know a lot about, but
it's something I should look at too, just out of curiosity, because I don't know. Most religions have, like, this is the baseline. This is who you pray to.
Right.
I don't know what their shtick is. I don't know at all what their guiding principles are.
Yeah, well, there's a couple like that where it's hard to even call them a religion at a certain point. It's almost like just like a cult or a group or whatever. I'm not even necessarily saying that in like a bad sense, but they just like, I don't know that they have like a founding idol or figure. It's kind of just like a group that follows the same beliefs, I guess you could say. But we're way off topic. We should try to get back to Antarctica here.
Well, you brought up owls.
I did. I know. I shouldn't have gone down that road, but whatever.
It's all good.
It is all good. But do you have any other thoughts on high jump, or you think we're good to move on from that?
Yeah, I think we're probably good to move on from it. Yeah, the point you were trying to make, or that you did make, or whatever, when you said, try to imagine how he felt. And so I'll kind of, I'll just talk through it from my point of view. And it's hard because I don't know what the Nazis meant to him. To me, it's part of history. I never met a Nazi, but to him, it's very different. He fought them. And so I can only imagine you're exploring the world that, probably something you've never seen before. All of a sudden it changes so drastically that, you're shitting your pants and you're thinking maybe this is something spiritual or whatever. And then you see a swastika. He probably thought, oh, fuck, I'm done.
Yeah. Well, my first thought would be that, the Nazis did go down there,
right?
That they had a base or whatever, and they were going to take you as a political prisoner or whatever.
Right.
Like your first thought isn't going to be, oh, this is a lost, isolated civilization from 10,000 years ago that's been growing in, complete solitude for thousands of years. Like, that's not where your brain's going to go as someone who's a very rational person. Like, he's an admiral in the Navy, very high up, like super reliable. Everybody loved this guy.
Yeah.
Like, glowing reviews from everyone. Like,
this is the guy, like, people, I don't even know who I'd compare him to now, but like, if you were to do sports, he was like the Tom Brady back then. He was like the fucking man.
Yeah. Like,
women wanted him, guys wanted to be him.
That's why they picked him for the job. Like, you don't pick just anybody to do that. That's like a big deal. And it was the first time that the U.S. had sent, especially on that scale, like that many people down there. But I guess before we do get off of that, I did want to read that an excerpt from that interview that he did give to that Chilean newspaper. It was El Mercurio, I think is what it was. And this is what had freaked a lot of people out after, years later, after he had gotten back. It basically said that one of the main points he made in the interview was that the United States and the world had to be very careful because we now live in a world where planes and machines can fly, over the world, pole to pole at incredible speed. And, when you combine that with the knowledge of what we have now, 70, 80 years later with supposedly his other diary entries, it definitely makes you wonder, like, was he talking about Agartha or was he talking about something else?
Yeah.
Like, because there's obviously other stuff that he saw down there too that, we don't know about, given like what his partner had said from what you had brought up.
Who was the astronaut that went down there and had a heart attack? Was that Glenn? Was it Glenn?
Might have been John Glenn.
Let me take a
John
look. But kind of the similar thing, I'll look it up.
But yeah, I will finish that quick. So the last thing that he said in there is Admiral Byrd said and explained that he was not trying to scare anyone, but the cruel reality is that in case of a new war, the United States could easily be attacked by planes flying over one or both poles. It obviously gives him an out where he can say like, oh, I'm just talking about, conventional aircraft or whatever, but it's a very odd statement. And you combine that with his super somber, weird attitude at pretty much all the media things that he did from the time he left Antarctica till actually like almost a year later when he had gotten back. I think that's why a lot of people took it in the way that they did, where it was kind of like, in a way, I don't want to say disheartening, but it made people pay attention.
Yeah.
And
Buzz Aldrin.
Oh,
That's
Aldrin?
who it was. Yeah, he suffered a heart attack and he was airlifted out to a hospital in New Zealand.
That was in Antarctica, huh?
Yeah, and so after he got out of the hospital, he apparently, I don't know if he tweeted this, but then he deleted it and it said, "We are all in danger. It is evil itself."
I did not hear that, actually.
Yeah.
I did not know that he tweeted that.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Crazy. I mean, I can't imagine somebody that age, like, I don't even tweet.
Oh, right. Yeah, no.
He texted that or tweeted that. He deleted the tweet within a couple of hours, but obviously it still raised a bunch of questions. He said one thing, we thought out things, THAWED, we thought out things that we shouldn't have.
When did he say that? When was this?
Oh, look here. So that's funny because I've never read that quote. I thought he said we saw things that we shouldn't have. So thawing something out. This article's from 2023. Let me see though. Yeah, unfortunately, this article doesn't have any source, so.
Gotcha. Yeah, I pulled this up, and I will say that there is some speculation that tweet was fabricated.
Sure.
But obviously, you get into a sense where that's what they would say.
Right.
Like, it's so hard with how little trust so many people have for the government now. That even if that was a legit thing, or if his Twitter got hacked or whatever, like, you'll never know, because that's what they'll say.
Yeah,
right. They'll say, "Oh, well, Buzz, you got to retract that and say it was a hoax. Otherwise, we're gonna hurt your family or whatever." Like, there's no way to ever really know. But even hearing stuff like that is kind of enlightening.
Well, and I think the more you hear. And maybe that's something we could talk about. There's this whistleblower. He he was recently like on Sean Ryan's show within the last year.
Yeah, that was a really good interview. I just watched that
man.
not too long ago.
When you hear that, what's his name? I'll look him up. Maybe I don't have it on here, but I'll find him. I'll pull up the video too. But this,
Yeah, if you can find the video, let's just play it.
this is just a short blurb of.
Because this, I really like this, and
Me
this
too.
is pretty crazy stuff. I think it was a pretty recent interview too. It was in the last couple months that I had watched it. So,
All right, here we go. So this is just a 30-second clip.
sure.
I physically held a key that opened every single door in the facility. I had complete access to every compartment they manufactured.
What are you blowing the whistle on?
That there are technologies at the South Pole Station that people can't even consider that exist on this planet. Directed energy weapon systems is something that people need to get into their vocabulary fast. The Ice Cube neutrino detector is not simply a passive listening device as presented for the science that they're claiming it to do. It also has the capacity to transmit. There are embedded in the ice what are called digital optical modules, DOMs. They're about the size of a basketball. The array embedded in the ice is 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. It is the world's largest telescope. And now, because we have proven that it can transmit, it's the world's largest directed energy weapon system. It is responsible. I physically held a key.
That's it. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think he goes on there to say that it's responsible for like several of the different earthquakes and
Yeah.
stuff that's happened in the last few years, which it's so insane to even think about. But especially after what happened, you see stuff like the fires in Maui and the fires in LA, and then you've got earthquakes all over the world, and it's hard because that stuff does happen naturally, right? But it really does feel like that stuff has been almost scripted the last few years.
Yeah, and like, then people who talk about it, they get gaslit about space lasers and all this stuff. And,
Right.
And so
The mainstream media is always going to poo-poo that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the thing where they always have, no matter what, you call it a conspiracy theory, call it a theory, whatever. After the last month with the way the Epstein files are shaken out, like you really can't make fun of conspiracy theorists anymore. When so much that was laughed at the last 5, 6, 10 years is now proven at least partially correct.
Yeah, I mean, conspiracy theory is a made-up term anyway from JFK, right?
It was the CIA.
Yeah, it's a CIA thing.
It's like a reverse psychology, like a psyop. Basically, They wanted to put it out there, and that's the same stuff they do now. With we were talking about what's his name? The guy we were just talking about last episode. That it was the guy who the dude came to the base and he had Doty. It was Doty.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That was his job. He was counterintelligence. So that guy, his whole job was to insert crazier and crazier ideas into various different, the UFO community. They do the same thing with the Bigfoot community too. I mean, they go out and they inject craziness in there, and then it propagates throughout the community, and then it makes it so that it's so insane that nobody knows what to believe anymore.
It's just, it's so messed up to me that, like, I get, I can see those tactics being very effective, obviously, if you're at war or something like that, but on your own citizens, I don't like, it's messed up.
Well, it didn't used to be like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was, a lot of this started with Woodrow Wilson in World War I, and FDR, to his credit, was excellent at doing it with, the Espionage Act, the Sedition Acts, all, we've slowly had our freedoms eaten away, and it's always under the guise of security.
Yeah.
It's really sad to see where we are now, post 9/11, post Patriot Act. Everybody's got every little town in the world has flock cameras now. You're being tracked everywhere you go. Google's tracking you. Palantir's for sure tracking you.
Your telephone is for sure tracking.
Yeah, well, I guarantee you this laptop that we're on right now and my phone and your phone right now, somebody's collecting that metadata.
Yeah,
it's somewhere.
for sure.
And there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. If you want to live in the modern world and have a job and feed your family, you have to have a phone. You have to have a computer.
But I think that's why you see, or at least I see, maybe, because the algorithm, I watched the video too long, so now I'm inundated with that crap. But
Right.
there has been, I think, a lot more people who are trying to homestead. They want to unplug from this society. They don't want nothing to do with it. Well, of course, half of them are vlogging the whole thing.
Oh,
and, you know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
makes their money. But yeah, they feel, I think a lot of people feel like you have your finger on us way too much.
Yeah. It's the poor man's version of building a bunker, I think.
Right.
Is the way that I look at it. Like, it's your way out.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with this latest, or not latest, Doge, when when they start finding all this money, for the most part, I mean, what that doesn't, like Trump, hate Trump, I don't care. It means nothing to me. But, to somebody like him, paying taxes means nothing.
Right.
Even if it's $1 billion fucking dollars. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's a rounding error.
But folks like us, if you have to magically come up with $2,800 or $10,000 or
me every year at the end of the year, we always pay in several $1,000s. So
and then so how much that means to you, and then to see what it's being wasted on, what country it's being sent to, fill in the blank, it pisses you off.
Yeah, it makes me livid, dude.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's infuriating.
And, obviously, a lot of the money isn't really going to gay frog studies in Indonesia. That's where they label it as. But really what it is they're actually giving fucking weapons to the Contras and shit. They're calling it something that's weird to the point where people just will ignore it or won't ask questions about it. But it's really going to nefarious stuff. It's going to political buy-offs. It's going to, a bunch of it goes to support foreign political parties. Like when the United States seized all of the German gold at the end of World War II. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but they gave that wasn't all of it, but it was a huge chunk of it to the Christian Democratic Party in Japan. And that's like their conservative party, or, the pro-America party, anti-China party over there. Mm-hmm. And it's still in a trust fund, and it's currently worth like billions of dollars.
Isn't this, they've asked for it back and they haven't given it back to them?
No, they actually did give it back to them, but they've been using it as a political war chest for like 40 years. And it was our way of saying, and there is various instances of us not giving the gold back too, but this specific one with Japan, it was in our interest. We say, we basically made them a trust fund. And we said, hey, party we like in Japan, this is your permanent war chest now. And, lo and behold, they've been largely the only party in power now for decades. And it's just like that. The fact that they can do stuff like that, they can steal our money, they can steal, Jewish people's money from Europe that got, exterminated, like, terrible, terrible stuff. And they don't have any qualms about using it for their own interests.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Swiss banks like Credit Suisse and stuff. They know some of the stuff in there is stolen, like Nazi artifacts. Of course they know. Yeah. But they're never going to give it back.
You got to think, I try to make sense of this just because, maybe it's just because, we're from the Midwest and whatever.
Right.
But, okay, like I just said at the beginning of this episode, what I viewed as successful in my 30s was, mostly monetary type of stuff.
I think that's everybody, dude. Yeah.
So, but now that I'm almost 50, it's like the last thing that I think of for success. I just want to like be able to, live a good life. And then when I die, I want to, be with my creator.
Yeah. Have eternal life after that. Right?
Yeah. Like that is the goal, and I'm not talking about like, I want to get there soon, but that's, that's the prize. What is their motivation? Like when they think of, I just can't understand it because, I feel like as a species, we should have evolved past war a long time ago.
I think most people have.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And then we keep having these wars because a very small percentage of us that are not evolved past that keep dragging everybody else into them.
They're the people that have the money.
Right. Like I absolutely would fight for my family, for my country, for my freedom. None of those things are currently threatened.
None. Yeah.
Like in any
and they
real
haven't
way.
been for quite some time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it, you can make an argument for the war on terror post 9/11 that it seemed like our freedoms were in jeopardy, right? And obviously I was quite young at the time, but even I remember the mood in the country post 9/11 was super patriotic, and I understand. I probably would have enlisted too if I was 18 back then, and I totally get it. But I think in hindsight, everybody can look back with 2020 vision and be like, that was not worth it. That war was absolutely not worth it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like Vietnam, Korea, at least there was somewhat of a decent outcome, but even that, Korea had been one Korea for a long time before that whole deal. So it's hard to find meaning in any war since World War II.
Yeah. Right.
Basically.
Yeah. And it's, again, we're way off topic, but whatever. That's what's frustrating. I was having a conversation with your mom about what I'm about to say, but like everybody's got like their thing, right? So I have, like, for me personally, I can't hardly watch any television.
I don't either.
It's all bullshit. It's all filled with whatever they want you to, their next agenda item.
It's slop. It's all advertising.
It's garbage. Yeah, it's just trash. So I don't watch it. And so your mom watches this program, and it's some type of reality show, and I can't help not say stuff when I walk by. I'm like, these people these are like garbage human beings. This isn't real. This is all scripted, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, so I had asked her, so what do you like about this? And I'm trying not to be a dick, but what do you like about it? Try
not to be judgmental.
Yeah. And she's like, it's these people are what I expect them to be. It's just for entertainment value.
Right.
And so that's a fair answer. And then I started thinking about, what do I do when I go on X? Yeah. I look at all the stupid political bullshit that I despise.
It's, we've talked a little bit, this is going to sound crazy, but we've talked a little bit about the moon and like them supposedly having like a soul catching engine up there, whatever. There's tons of theories about like what could be on the dark side of the moon, right? Well, one of those theories is that, whoever is in charge down here is trying to keep us all in a state of perpetual negativity.
Yeah.
And they're trying to harvest that negativity. And I do think in like a metaphysical sense that actually makes sense, because when you feel negative emotions all the time, you physically feel drained.
Yeah. Like, this is Monsters Inc. We're living Monsters Inc.
Yeah. If I would have, there's no way I would have believed that 3 years ago. There's absolutely no way. But the older you get and the more you see what people's moods and vibes and feelings physically does to them, like actually in real life, it's like there's something more there than just, because people will talk it away like, oh, it's just it's just your mind, you just need to get on whatever antipsychotic, antidepressant or whatever, but your mind is your body,
right?
And I think the people in power know that a lot better than your normal plebes sitting at home watching, Real World Road Rules Challenge do.
Yeah.
Like, we just don't get it. And that's the way they want it. They don't want us to get it.
Yeah, I fully believe that too. Yeah, I'm curious, when did you... So I think that's part of waking up, right? Or, getting awoken or whatever they call it, But I think it's a real thing, is you start to see what's really going on. This is all a stage. This is all scripted garbage for somebody's agenda.
Right.
What is there anything, like, was there something that tipped you or that made you, you said over the last couple of years, is it just all these little events adding up, or was there one thing where you're like, what's that all
for
about?
Me, it was for sure COVID.
Yeah.
COVID definitely did it for me. I was never super like, pro government, rah. Like, I believe what the government says. Like, everybody that has a brain knows the government lies to you all the time. And some of that is justified maybe, and some of it's not.
Right.
But when COVID went down, the first couple months I was like, oh, this is going to be really bad. Right. Like, I remember having conversations with you and my friends and my, former coworkers, and we were all, you know, moderately concerned. We're like, oh, this must be
Mask up.
yeah. No, I mean, when it first happened, everybody was like that, dude,
Yeah.
because we thought it was going to be dengue fever. We thought it was going to be polio or whatever. It was going to be really bad. And then you start to see some of the like lethality numbers come back, and how dangerous it really should have been, which wasn't very dangerous at all. Like
When the numbers match the flu from the year before.
exactly. Yeah. Where it's like, yes, this isn't like a good thing to have, but if you're healthy and, you know, middle-aged or younger, you're going to be fine, right? Like you're 99.99% chance you're going to be fine. And, you know, some people did get really sick in the same way as I think you got pretty sick too, but
Absolutely.
it
Yeah.
wasn't like deathbed sick. It was just you felt like shit.
I had a fever for 10 days straight, which
Yeah.
if you know, like when you get the flu and you get a fever for a couple of days,
It sucks.
yeah. 10 days it was miserable. So I
Right.
got it bad, but you know, so it was a bad flu.
Right.
But you know, I'm not taking away for like the children and elderly it was bad, but
no, it's
not,
horrible.
yeah. But I still don't think it's as bad as, you know, there's two things during COVID that kind of rocked my world a little bit. And it was people dying and not being able to have a visitor present.
Yeah.
That is so, yeah, that's tragic. I mean, that's just terrible. You know,
Yeah.
how lonely, how terrible.
I was super angry because that happened to us. I mean, you know that my wife, I won't say her name on here. I haven't asked her if she wants me to or not yet, but my wife during COVID, we were at the time running a business actually, and she had to leave and go to the ER because she was having really bad stomach pains, right? And she came home and she said, you know, they said it was, you know, just a stomach bug or whatever. And another day or so goes by and she's still having these pains, right? And it's lower on the right side of her stomach. So me knowing what I know, I'm like, hey, like this is probably appendicitis. You need to go in again. And they obviously wouldn't let me go in with her because it was during COVID. So she went in and basically begged them to do a scan. And they finally did, and they caught it, thankfully barely in time, and immediately went into surgery or whatever. But she was there after the surgery for like 2 days. And they wouldn't let me go in to see her. They wouldn't let me talk to her, you know, other than on the phone or whatever. And even I wanted to bring her an iPad so she could play games, you know, not on her phone. And they had a nurse meet me at the outer airlock door and hand the iPad to her. She brought it in, sprayed the iPad off, and then brought it inside.
It's insanity.
It was so ridiculous, so far beyond ridiculous. I was so pissed off.
Yeah.
I'm like, what if, because she had it bad. She was almost septic.
Yeah.
What if she would have died and I would have not been there for my wife?
Right.
Like, obviously not everybody knows me, but I've been with my wife for like 15 years. Like, I don't think I ever would have came back from that.
No,
you know? And
no.
it just pissed me off so much because I'm like, this is such a basic human need that
Yes.
people are denying. And then I think about all the people with grandparents that were sick and moms and dads.
Oh,
and
there was
uncles
this
and aunts.
video of these grandparents finally getting to see their grandkid, and this is how fucking stupid it was. Probably because their parents were mindless, but they had the grandparents come over and hug the grandkids through like a plastic bag.
Just like the bubble kid.
What are you doing? You know?
I know.
So the two things. So that, you know, people losing loved ones without being able to say goodbye or comforting them. And then this isn't against, you know, doctors or nurses because we need them and they're great people. But I think it was all bullshit. All these videos started showing up of nurses doing these choreographed dances. You know, we'll get through this together. And the whole
Right.
fucking hospital, I thought you guys were busy. What's going on?
Right.
It was just, I don't know.
It was poor timing and in poor taste.
Well,
I
and it's
think.
like propaganda at its highest level. You know,
Right.
you're taking, because everybody's sympathetic towards these nurses, as
For
they
sure.
should be, right?
Yeah.
They're overworked, right?
Well, we have a nurse in our family, and they, like, at the time were in a very big city, and they were absolutely slammed. And I asked her about it, and she's like, there's no way I
Yeah.
could have been doing a choreographed dance at, you know, this gigantic metropolitan
Right.
hospital. So it makes you wonder, like, who's doing this stuff?
Well, and that's why I said it's I think it was all set up. They probably weren't nurses. It was actors or actresses,
Right.
you know, whatever. But it's like that irritated me because because we all are sympathetic and we hold those people, those healthcare professionals in a very high regard because, they look after us.
Yeah.
So to use them knowing you're not going to call them out. So they use them as your pawn. It was just, I don't know. I saw that video. It didn't sit right with me. And then you start ruminating on it and you're like, that's a psyop type of thing, like,
for sure. Well, at the time they were, rightfully so, they were promoting, nurses, doctors, anybody essential as a hero. And they are like, that was,
way more than sports figures,
100%.
Way more than actresses for sure. Yeah.
But would they use that to put in some maybe fake nurses and do a dance and try to spin the narrative? Probably.
Oh, yeah.
Like, absolutely. Do you think the CIA has done way darker shit than that?
Oh, right. Yeah.
So it basically, tying all this conspiracy back to Antarctica, it really is, the thing with Antarctica for me is the unknown and how it's been the same story, the same legacy of lies for the last 100 years. You can go back farther than that, and Antarctica is a great example of that. We're both really interested in Antarctica, so it's an easy episode for us to do. As you guys can probably see, like, exact dates are not our strong suit, but we know a lot of the info. But the fact that the narrative hasn't really changed ever on so much of this stuff is what blows my mind, and it gives me a lot of hope that now we are finally starting to see that shift into the mainstream of people at least asking the questions.
I know.
What is going on here? We have a right to know. We deserve to know. We're citizens of the world. We're American citizens. Like, if there's something major going on behind the scenes, we 100% deserve to know what it is.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And that's all we want to know is the truth.
Yeah, and I don't buy the world couldn't take it. It's like, come on, us knowing, like, who the upper echelon people are, and their moral values are on full display. They can handle it, but we can't.
Right.
Get out of here. It's garbage.
Dude. Like, it's always been
it's
bullshit.
control. I mean, it's just a form of control.
Yeah, information is power, man.
Yeah,
and they don't want to give it up.
So I don't know if we're getting ready to wrap this up, but before we do, I wanted to ask you. So, and it's obviously different now with the children and all that stuff, but if you had the opportunity to go spend, 2 months in Antarctica, free reign, would you go do it?
I think, I'll put a qualifier on there that I would have, like, support. Like, I'd have a stable base to go to, and I wouldn't die. Yes, absolutely. I would love to go down there and explore.
Yeah, that one really excites me, actually. I mean, we live on the border of Wisconsin, Minnesota, so I mean, I think we're probably a little more prepared for the cold.
Yes.
I don't think you can ever be fully prepared for some of that stuff, but I think that'd be fantastic. Just amazing. It's such a, if you pull up Google Earth or whatever and you look at it,
what's not blacked out anyway.
Well, you look at this fuzzy white ball.
Yeah.
But you look at the size of the landmass. There's just, you got to think most people think there's nothing left to explore, and maybe that's true, but I don't think it is. I think there's more to explore, and potentially much, much more.
Right? We don't know. I mean, maybe there's a portal to another dimension down there. We can explore that.
That's right.
It's the pictures of what we have of Antarctica are gorgeous. It's a beautiful continent. I agree. I would love to go there, but there's, like we said, there's still a ton of mystery down there. There's tons of people we know are lying about what goes on down there. So we had to do the episode. It was a layup for us.
Absolutely.
But we really appreciate you guys listening. I think we'll wrap it up there for today. A little bit longer one, but that's okay. Again, thanks, and I will link all of our socials and everything below. I'm not sure yet what our next episode will be on. We have like 30 ideas written down in a book, so we'll talk about it this week. But you got anything else to say in closing?
No, yep, you're right. This is one that this is kind of going to be our. We'll change things as we go, but we just like to talk about it, and so that's what this is. This is going to be a conversation between two guys who are interested in this stuff, and we'll try to do better at dates, but it's definitely not our strong suit.
We put it in the notes and then we get lost in the notes. It is what it is. But overall, we did both want to say thank you for family and friends that have supported us so far. And, we really hope everybody that listens gets something out of it. So
absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
A band of shadows is a heavy